For a long time, encouraging Indigenous student attendance rates in early childhood education and care has been a focus of the education system in Australia. The percentage of possible school days attended by Indigenous students, particularly in Western Australia and the Northern Territory, is significantly lower than their non-Indigenous counterparts, and this statistic does not improve as they progress through their school careers. Indigenous students are also often considered to be less school-ready and unable to progress through the required academic achievement levels. Clearly, this focus on attendance and numbers is not enough, as we continually fail to meet targets set by the Closing the Gap policies. Promoting engagement is where real gains will be made. Firstly, it is important to look at the possible causes for low attendance rates and a lack of engagement for Indigenous students in regional and remote Western Australia. There are a number of factors, including low birth weight, fetal alcohol syndrome, poor nutrition and health, parental substance abuse or mental health issues, a lack of stable employment, abuse or neglect, cultural obligations, and family or community transients. But a big factor is that school and home life, for many students, are a cultural mismatch. The Western colonial education style is a world away from what they are used to, and the home and school spheres do not intersect. So why have we spent so long trying to push our early childhood education style on students that it clearly isn't working for? Part of the problem is the current drive for globalisation. We are in a position to be able to look around at education systems from so many different countries and copy whatever policies are seeming to be most effective. As many experts point out, this fails to take into account the context and dynamics of the environments into which these policies will be grafted. There is also a lingering perception that, as the advanced colonisers, we know better than the inferior Indigenous people. Unfortunately, our history of putting our foot in it when we try to better their situation has only bred a distrust within the Indigenous community of the white man's interventions. To address the school and home disparity, and to ensure cultural sensitivity, it is invaluable to engage parents and community members in the early childhood education and care process. By doing this, organisations such as the Best Start Playgroup in Carnarvon, Western Australia, have been able to train and employ early childhood education professionals from the local community, bringing in rich cultural knowledge and providing the students with positive role models. Lessons about nutrition, hygiene and healthy habits will be much more readily received when they come from the mouth of a trusted figure. The Home Interaction Program for Parents and Youngsters, or HIPPY, is another example of parents being engaged as educators while still valuing their knowledge and expertise. Research by the Secretariat of National Aboriginal and Islander Childcare shows that Indigenous students are much more willing to engage in school when there are Aboriginal staff members in the classroom. This research is corroborated by education systems around the world that also deal with disengagement from Indigenous students. In Canada, there has been a decades-long push for greater educative engagement from the Inuit and Indian peoples, and policymakers have recognised the value of empowerment through language and culture. By affirming the importance of cultural identity, Canada has seen rising school participation from Indigenous students from the early childhood years all the way through to university. A Canadian success story is the Ottawa Inuit Children's Centre, which is serving as an example to early childhood education and care centres across the country. By including Inuit culture and language in their curriculum, with Indigenous staff and play-based learning, they have seen great success in terms of attendance and engagement from students. There are also a number of alternative education styles that could have beneficial impacts on Indigenous student engagement in the early years. Elements of Montessori education, such as student-led learning and allowing them to learn through exploration, would do something to diminish the need to be school-ready, as long as the resources and encouragement are appropriate. The holistic Reggio approach, focusing on the whole child, can provide some of the framework to address issues such as fatigue and poor nutrition, causing health issues or distraction. In conclusion, it is time we stopped saying we need to do something because these numbers don't look good, and started focusing on what can make a difference at ground level. By looking at what other education systems globally have implemented, we can develop programs that are culturally appropriate and targeted to address the unique needs and complications surrounding our Indigenous youth, to give them the best possible start to their education journey.